Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 1981, we started a national celebration in the United States honoring women. Congress passed legislation which authorized and requested the President to proclaim the week of March 7, 1982 as Women's History Week. Throughout the next 5 years, Congress continued to pass joint resolutions designating a week in March as Women's History Week. In 1987, Congress passed a new statute which designated the entire month of March, 1987, as Women's History Month. Between 1988 and 1994, Congress passed additional resolutions requesting and authorizing the President to proclaim March of each year as Women's History Month. And since 1995, Presidents Clinton, Bush, and Obama have issued a series of annual proclamations designating the month of March as Women's History Month. We have so many women all throughout our country in each one of our congressional districts who have gone above and beyond and have etched their place into history through their outstanding service to their community and their country. We have women who serve in our military, who are teachers in our classrooms, women who are first responders or artists, business owners. I certainly wouldn't be able to be where I am today, standing here in this chamber, if not for all of the women in my life, especially my two daughters, Michaela and Ariana. Two women who have strong New York One roots. One from Setauket, Anna Strong, was an American patriot and a member of Culper Spy Ring, George Washington's military intelligence unit. As part of George Washington's network of spies, she literally put it all on the Life for Liberty during the American Revolution, hanging different garments on her clothesline as a signal to other patriots on the movements of the British forces throughout Long Island. Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, First Lady to our 35th President, John F. Kennedy. Jackie O was born on the east end of Long Island in Southampton. In addition to her role as First Lady, she is also remembered for her contributions to the arts and historic preservation. In each one of our districts, we can personalize what Women's History Month means to our individual districts. Because etched in the history going back generations is so much sacrifice to be able to not only take care of their families, but to advance their communities and their country. The freedom and liberty that we cherish here in this chamber would not be possible without the sacrifices of so many who we honor throughout the year at different times. But it's the month of March in particular that we take an extra special pause to say thank you. Before I served in Congress, I served in the New York State Senate. During my time there were countless measures to be supportive of ensuring that women are protected and giving access to opportunity, security, and prosperity. As one of our colleagues, Virginia Fox, recently pointed out, every issue is a women's issue. In 2012 and 2013, while serving in the state Senate, I had the opportunity to vote in favor of the New York State Senate's Women's Equality Agenda, which passed the Senate in both years. It was a robust package of legislation to help with various protections, including what I'm supportive of, equal pay for equal work. I also voted to create a workforce training program within the Department of Labor. I fought for this program because with the current state of the economy, many women are struggling and their families. This program would help women to obtain higher paying jobs and give them access to better opportunities to provide for themselves and their families. In state houses, all across this country, and local governments as well. There are opportunities to provide more of a chance for that woman and her family to be able to achieve truly the American dream. But sometimes government and regulations and laws can block and prevent that access to educational opportunities, the ability maybe to own your own small business and grow it into something greater. It is our duty, whether you are serving as a village mayor or a local town supervisor, or if you're a member of the United States Congress, to seek out opportunities to best represent those who we are elected to be their voice and ensure that they're given maximum opportunity to succeed. I'm pleased to be joined this afternoon by Miss Diane Black, who is an amazing, exceptional woman who, in her own right, I'm sure that at some point there'll be a Women's History Month special order in this chamber a couple generations from now, where they'll be talking about all of your outstanding service. And you have not only served your district well, but have served our entire country well. And I yield such time as she may consume to Ms. Black.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my good friend, Mr. Zeldin, for yielding to me. And I've been sitting here listening to your words, and I will say that I am honored to have you here talking about the women in your life, more particularly your wife and your two daughters, and what the future may bring for them. Mr. Speaker, it's often said that every issue is a woman's issue, and it's true. I know Representative Zeldin just made that comment. And when we talk about tax reform for our small businesses, this directly impacts 30% of small business owners who are women. And when we talk about repealing Obamacare's harmful 30-hour rule, that is depressing hours and wages, we do so with the knowledge that the majority of those harmed by this rule are women. And when we talk about preserving and protecting the American dream for future generations, we do so with the hope that young girls like my granddaughters would be able to live a life that they choose for themselves, not that someone else chooses for them. For me, this topic is deeply personal. I spent the first years of my life living in public housing, the daughter of parents with no more than a 9th grade education. I know how matters of poverty acutely impact women because I lived it. I came from a background where people didn't always know how to dream, and as a result, I was prepared to settle for a life of unfilled potential. I had started to believe that as a young woman growing up in the 50s and the 60s who literally lived on the other side of the tracks, that maybe the American dream wasn't for me. But in time, Mr. Speaker, doors of opportunity were open that helped me realize a plan for my life that was greater than I could ever imagine. I became the first person in my family to earn a college degree. I fulfilled my desire to become a registered nurse, and I became privileged to serve the state of Tennessee in the legislature and now in Congress. Mr. Speaker, I have traveled to far corners of the world, and I have seen the struggle that women endure for access to education, a paycheck, and for real independence. I'm also keenly aware that only here in this country is this story of mine possible. Only here could someone like me go from living in the halls of public housing to serving in the halls of the United States Congress. And that's why we call this the American dream. On this Women's History Month, we must resolve to ensure that stories like mine aren't unique. The work we do here in Congress must reach today's young women with the truth that they have the God-given gifts waiting to be used and that the American dream is theirs to share as well. I again thank Congressman Zeldin for bringing us together for this important conversation, and I yield back the balance of my time.
I thank Ms. Black for her important words and again for all of her service. And one of the things that I will forever be inspired by with regards to Ms. Black's service here in this chamber is how much she values family and the strength of a strong family and the need for champions at all levels of government to fight on their behalf. I mentioned earlier my two daughters, Michaela and Ariana. Identical girls. They are 9.5. They're finishing 4th grade. And when they were born, they were less than 1.5 pounds. They were born 14.5 weeks early. And I was actually in Iraq in 2006, and a Red Cross message came out and said that my wife went into labor, and the babies weren't going to make it, and it was a sad time. That was the 22nd week. The doctors at Georgetown University Hospital were amazing. Somehow they managed to keep my daughters alive for 3 more weeks. They were born in the 25th week. And these girls went through more in their 3.5 months in the hospital than I would ever wish upon anyone to have to experience. And you learn a lot about prayer. I hope this is okay, we probably accepted prayer in about 16 different religions during that experience. We would see these 2 twins on one side of our girls. Twins might be growing faster than ours, and might say to ourselves, why aren't our girls growing as quickly as those 2? But then on your other side, there might be triplets, and you're watching parents mourn the loss of one of their triplets. And you learn to count your blessings, understanding that it's not about you, it's about them, and thank you to the miracle of prayer and modern medicine, they were able to come home. They were on about a dozen medications each and heart monitors, and it wasn't easy. They didn't hit 8 pounds until they were about 13 months old. But these girls were so strong. And what they experienced during their time in the hospital was just absolutely amazing to me and my wife. They had multiple surgeries while they were there. And there was a time where one of my daughters, she went into what's called septic shock, which has an 80-90% mortality rate. And while she was in septic shock, she had a stroke. And the doctors actually recommended that my wife and I discontinue treatment. Michaela wasn't getting any better, but she wasn't getting any worse for about 24 hours up to this point where the doctors were recommending that we discontinue treatment and let her go. We decided if she was going to keep fighting, we were going to keep fighting with her. And we elected to do this really risky brain surgery. My wife and I went to her, said goodbye, went to the waiting room, expecting the worst, hoping for the best. Doctors came to us when surgery was done and said, Michaela's not out of the woods yet, but things went better than expected. And with a whole lot of fight and strength and prayer and a lot of amazing medicine and expertise at that hospital, they're doing great. They're doing great. Now, Michaela ended up getting some early intervention when she was younger. And my 2 daughters, they're equals with their peers. They've caught up to them. And just think of how many opportunities were provided to these girls from the moment they went into the hospital to today to be able to survive and to succeed. Now, there are a lot of decisions that get made here in this chamber that impact women, future women leaders of our country, young girls and boys who aren't old enough to vote. Yet some of the most important consequences of the decisions made in this chamber impact not just the women of today, but those of tomorrow who don't even have a vote. There are women in this chamber now. I have a few freshman colleagues who come to mind, and there are several women who were elected. Lee Stefanik, the youngest woman ever elected to Congress. She just turned 31 years old. Martha McSally, the first female fighter pilot in American military history, serving here now as a freshman. I believe a happy birthday is in order to her. I would say maybe happy 27th birthday if you're listening. I don't want to get myself into trouble, but a happy birthday to Martha. Mia Love. Mia is the first black Republican woman, but she's Mormon, Haitian. She's all sorts of firsts, and she is inspiring so many. All of the three women I just mentioned, and there are more that I could mention, inspiring my daughter's generation to aim high. Because you may be a veteran, you might become a teacher, you might someday be an elected official or an artist or a business owner. And it's good to have role models. And that's why I speak about Anna Strong, an American patriot who's part of that story of how our nation was founded. Or, as I mentioned, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, who was born in the 1st Congressional District of New York. The decisions that we make here in this chamber impact that next generation not even old enough to vote. So when we talk about the economy and budgets and debts and deficits, you know what? I'm not as concerned about the person who is part of making that decision or has a voice as much as a strong passion and emotion for that young girl who's going to be inheriting the consequences of passing the buck off to people who aren't even old enough to vote. So I speak of my daughters, I talk about health, I talk about prayer, I talk about education, and the decisions that are made in this chamber and in state houses and local governments that provide opportunities for the business owners and the teachers. While we pause on Women's History Month to honor those who have come before us, it's every day while we serve, every day that we serve, that we should pursue those opportunities in any way possible for anyone around now or that future generation. Now, I'm proud to say that the highest ranking Republican woman in the United States of America is standing right next to me. So we all deeply admire Cathy McMorris Rodgers for, on so many levels, for her outstanding leadership in this chamber. And I know that some of the women's names I just mentioned who now serve here, or my daughters who are looking for role models in life, that so many look up to you as they do Ms. Black, who spoke just before you. And I yield to the gentlelady for as much time as she may consume.
Certainly thank the gentleman for yielding. Appreciate your service, your leadership on behalf of the people of New York, and an advocate for making history moving forward for women. As we walk these halls of Congress, it's hard to miss the bronze and marble reminders of women who blazed the trail before us. We follow their lead, remember their struggles, enjoy the rights and freedoms they've helped us secure. Perhaps the most lasting tribute we can make for them is through our effort to make history for the next generation of trailblazers. Friends, we are nearing the end of Women's History Month, and I've reflected on the words of our beloved First Lady, Nancy Reagan, who passed away earlier this month. Feminism is the ability to choose what you want to do. Her words remind me just how much young girls need role models. They need to be able to look up to courageous women in every field who inspire them to dream so that they can say, she's cool. That's what I want to do too. Women like Dr. Shelley Redinger, the superintendent of public schools in Spokane, who's been on the forefront of significantly improving graduation rates. She represents the school district by serving on several community boards, yet still finds time to visit or teach a class in one of the district's 50 schools. Women like Dr. Patricia Butterfield, the dean of WSU College of Nursing, who is recognized both in nursing and health sciences as a regional, national, and international scholar, and takes time to inspire her own students to have a sense of discovery. Women like Brooke Martin, a 15-year-old from Eastern Washington, who 3 years ago developed the idea for I See Pooch to solve her dog's separation anxiety using video chat. After coming in second in a prestigious science competition, her invention is now sold on 3 continents. It's my honor to represent these inspirational women. And as the second chairwoman of the House Republican Conference, it's a privilege to serve alongside my passionate, accomplished, and talented House Republican colleagues who are as diverse as the regions we represent. Renee Almers and Diane Black are nurses. Mimi Walters was a stockbroker. Martha McSally was a colonel in the Air Force and the first female fighter pilot. Barbara Comstock juggled starting a family with completing law school before she became chief counsel of the House Government on Oversight and Government Reform. Susan Brooks was a U.S. attorney in Indiana, prosecuting high-profile cases of mortgage fraud and online child exploitation. Virginia Fox was the first in her family to go to college, and she later earned a master's degree and doctorate in education and served as president of a community college. Kay Granger was the first woman to be elected mayor of Fort Worth and is the first and only Republican woman elected from Texas to the House of Representatives. Marsha Blackburn was the first woman to sell books door-to-door for a Southwestern company. After working her way up in the company, Marsha left to build a small business of her own. Vicki Hartzler was raised on the farm, served in the Missouri State House until taking time off after adopting her baby daughter, and then became the second Republican woman elected to Congress from Missouri. Jamie Herrera Butler is the first Hispanic in history to represent Washington State in the House, and her daughter is the first child to survive Potter's syndrome. Len Jenkins was raised on a dairy farm, and she's a certified public accountant. Cynthia Lummis was the youngest woman elected to the Wyoming legislature. Candace Miller served as Michigan's first female Secretary of State. Kristi Noem left college early to run her family's ranch after her father died, but later earned her bachelor's degree in 2012 while serving in Congress. Martha Roby worked at a law firm, and she's one of the first 2 women elected to Congress from Alabama. Ileana Ross-Leighton is the first Cuban-American Latina elected to Congress. Ann Wagner was the United States ambassador to Luxembourg. Jackie Walorski wore many hats. She was a television reporter, a missionary, and even the executive director of her local humane society. Elise Stefanik, at 30, was the youngest woman ever elected to Congress. Mia Love is the first African-American Republican woman to serve in the House. And Amada Radamagan is the first woman elected to serve in Congress from America Samoa. Each story is unique and incredible, and our presence in Congress is a reminder that all issues are women's issues. For women in every corner of the country, we care about achieving a better life for ourselves and our children. As Congresswoman Blackburn so aptly put it, it's a poetic coincidence that Mrs. Reagan passed away during this month of remembrance. She will go down in history as one of the most influential and consequential first ladies in American history, and a permanent fixture in our memories. The onus is now on us, as women leaders, to show girls across this country that with hard work, they can achieve anything. No dream is too big and no goal too far-fetched. We take seriously the responsibility to encourage and empower the next generation of female leaders with how we interact, how we present ourselves as leaders, and the policies we choose to pursue. And that's why House Republicans are building an agenda to restore a confident America where every American feels secure in their lives and in their futures. Let's focus on a bright future for every American, every woman, to live courageously, follow their hearts, see potential in others, and be risk takers. And that's where women can keep making history for generations to come. And I yield.
I thank Ms. McMorris Rodgers for being a strong leader, a trailblazer, a role model for many women who serve here in this chamber, for, I'm sure, countless women inside of her district and all around this country. At this time, I would like to yield to Ms. Susan Brooks, who was referenced by Ms. McMorris Rodgers for her role taking on incredible responsibility inside of our Justice Department, ensuring that America and her community was safe, and she continues her service here today as an important leader and voice in this chamber, and I yield such time as she may consume.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the gentleman from New York. And I want to also thank and commend him for his service to our country and his many years of service in the armed services. And I want to thank him for leading this special hour and this special order. And I rise today in honor of Women's History Month, as have those who've gone before me. 100 years ago, the very first woman was elected to Congress. Her name was Representative Jeanette Rankin, and she was elected by the great state and the people of Montana to serve in the House of Representatives. This was even a few years before women were given the right to vote in this country. But since then, 313 women have served in Congress as United States representatives, delegates, or senators. So think about that. 100 years and only 313 women have been elected to represent their home districts and states in this country. I'm very proud to be here with the gentlelady from Tennessee, and we just heard from the gentlelady from the state of Washington, proud to be one of these 313 women. When I was elected, I joined my colleague from Indiana, Jackie Walorski, and we were in fact the first Republican women elected to represent the state of Indiana in 53 years. It had been 53 years since a representative, her name was Cecil Hardin, represented the western part of our state, and she served in Congress for 10 years, from 1949 to 1959. Now, 100 years after Representative Rankin made history by winning the first congressional seat held by women, women like me are still making history by running and winning elected office. Today, I serve in the House of Representatives with 84 women. And as you've just heard, we are as diverse as the places we represent, and yet, as I talk to my colleagues, we all agree on one thing. We have much more work to do. And even though there are a record number of women in Congress, we're still just 20% of the total. We're not alone, however, in that gender disparity. From Congress to state legislatures to governors and mayor's offices, women represent about 1 in 5 elected officials. That figure has remained relatively consistent since the 1990s. We've plateaued. And it's not just in Congress. That same gender disparity can be seen at the Emmy Awards, in the executive boardroom, and in the newsroom. This Women's History Month, instead of just focusing on all of the incredible accomplishments and achievements of the women that have come before us, I also want to mention just for a short time about our hopes and our goals for the future, our dreams for what women will be able to accomplish in the next 100 years. More women are now earning college degrees, associates, bachelor's, and doctoral, than men today. And these women, as they graduate, are actually more likely than their male counterparts to have a job lined up. These young women are the future history makers who will work on the front lines to fight cancer and to find a cure to cancer. They will serve with dignity in this chamber, and they will serve in leadership levels in all levels of government. They will be the women who will lead in the boardroom, and they will be the women who will build the next generation of technology. We know that there are women coming behind us who will be making a difference. And I look forward to future Women's History Months when we can talk about those women and what they have achieved. I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about women, both past, present, and future. And thank you. I yield back.
Well, thank you for being here, Miss Brooks, and hopefully just the video of for all of those young girls who come home from school and part of their routine, they're watching C-SPAN right now and looking for inspiration, what to do with their life. You know, high school, college, you try to figure out what the right path is for you, and you search around for role models, and I can only imagine how many women have asked you, how? What's the path? Tell me. And there really isn't any one path to get to this chamber or to be that teacher or that veteran. But you have pursued a path that I'm sure inspires so many in your home district. And I greatly thank you for your service to our country.
Well, thank you, Congressman Zeldin. And I must say that certainly when I started my path right out of college, I would not have ever guessed that I would have been here in the United States House of Representatives. And I think when people approach you and ask you to consider this type of public service, I hope that a lot of young women look to the women who are here and see that we have been able to do it and they can as well. And it's an honor to serve with you.
Yeah, I would also manage, I would venture to guess that during your time as a prosecutor in our judicial system that there have been countless women who you've seen firsthand searching for that advice on how to go through that really tough challenge in their life and feeling vulnerable or trapped. And that strength of character, knowing that there's someone around to help you out of tough times. Your experiences throughout that path must give you an incredible perspective right now for those women who might right now be in an abusive relationship or they've suffered something traumatic in their life and they don't know where to go. They feel trapped.
Well, I have to tell you, I think that there have been a number of women role models in my life, women who have served as judges, federal judges, state court judges, who have been tremendous mentors to the women of the bar. I've been an attorney for 30 years, and there is a sisterhood of those who practice law and who work to uphold the laws, and so we work together to try to support each other, not just in the courtrooms, but in our professional career paths. And women like Federal Judge Sarah Evans Barker, who is about to retire, another federal judge, Sue Shields, who was the first female judge in the state of Indiana. She was first female judge at the state court level and then also served in federal bench as a magistrate. And they have been strong role models and have helped us as lawyers deal with our colleagues or those who we are bringing through the ranks and offering that hand up. As they have offered that hand up to me, we're often trying to make sure that women can overcome whatever obstacles they might have in continuing their career path.
And I'm witnessing it firsthand. You're giving back many times over. And thank you for being here and participating in honor of Women's History Month and for all of what you do to create your own legacy and trailblazing yourself. Which I'm sure will be spoken about many years to come.
Well, thank you, Congressman Zeldin, and I only hope to make Congresswoman Cecil Hardin, who served from 49 to 59, her legacy proud to be a member serving in this great chamber from the great state of Indiana. So thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to recognize Ms. Black, and as Ms. Brooks departs, and I think of the words of Ms. Cathy McMorris Rodgers as well, this has been an inspiring hour just think of these three women who are standing before you and what they've accomplished. Gosh, and thank you, Ms. Black, for being here and making this an important hour and an important message on so many different levels.
Well, thank you, Congressman Zeldin. And I thank you for yielding to me a brief period of time here where I will have the honor to recognize someone that mentored me when I was back in the state Senate and had the honor of serving there with a lieutenant governor that was a very fine man, and he is retiring. And so I thank you for yielding a few minutes for me to recognize him and to let him know how much we have appreciated his service to the state of Tennessee, and to thank him for his mentorship of me as a young senator back at the state level.
Well, I can only imagine how many stories you might have along the way of the people we come in contact with. For me, my parents were divorced and remarried. So I grew up with four parents. Went through a few divorces with them, and then my grandparents were married for over 71 years. Oh my. And if they lost everything, if they didn't have a home, didn't have any money, if they didn't have any friends, if they only had each other, they would have been happy. That would have been success in life. They found it as soon as they had found each other. And before you go, I just want to let you know how much so many members of this chamber appreciate everything that you do with everything that, whatever it is that you've experienced or encountered in life in your path to get here today. You make the most of every minute of being in this chamber on behalf of keeping our family strong, and I value that very much.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate you saying that. My family is number one in my life, and I have two granddaughters, and I'm hoping that everything that I teach them, that includes cooking and sewing and fishing, that they will remember fondly as they grow into young women as well. I encourage them to be all that they can be. And I think given their strong personalities that I'm seeing right now, we're going to see them as being leaders when they grow up as well.
Well, and after this hour is over at another time, maybe you can give me advice as having two 9-year-old girls at home of what's in store for me here in 2 or 3 years. I hear these vicious rumors that things might change.
Oh, I tell you what, no matter what phase they go through, they will always be your little girls. All right. And the thing that you need to do is every day, every night, every moment, just let them know how much you love them, and they'll grow up to be fine young women.
If they ever give me a hard time, I will say that Diane Black told me that this was only going to be temporary.
You send them to see Mama Black.
All right. Well, hopefully I won't be doing it as a last resort. I might make that plan A.
I have a feeling you're going to be quite a good daddy, you are and that you will be as they grow through those difficult years, which all little girls do, so you will have those years. But just remember, on the other end, they will come out beautiful young women.
Well, thank you. And in all seriousness, you really do provide inspiration for so many and how much you value that strong family.
Thank you. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Ted Poe, who is well respected in this chamber for not just his straight talk and his intellect, someone who is a fierce champion of American security, of our Constitution, but it's obvious that he also has a soft spot in his heart for the importance of honoring those in our lives and in our country who have come before us and served today to make this place extra special, and I yield such time as he may consume to Mr. Poe.
I thank the gentleman from New York, and it's an honor to be here to, as you say, recognize the people that have influenced our life. And of course, we're talking about the women that have influenced our lives to help us be what we turned out to be. And I want to talk specifically about some specific Texas women who I consider a rare breed. They are tenacious, strong-willed, nurturing, and also kind. One of those is my mother. My mom and dad, I'm blessed that they're both alive. They're 90 years of age. My mom was a Red Cross volunteer during World War II. And she met my dad. He was in World War II in Germany, coming back to the United States. He was being re-equipped for the invasion of Japan. They met at a Wednesday night prayer meeting. We call that church in Texas. got married, and they've been married now 70 years. And she not only started out as a volunteer, she's done all remarkable things, including being a school teacher and raising my sister and I and other wonderful things. But we have, in the state of Texas, we're proud, as other states are. We have many modern-day influential women, including the First Ladies Laura Bush, Barbara Bush, and the late Governor Ann Richards. These women were influential, powerful, and successful in their own right, but they were not the first of their kind. There was another generation of pioneers that came before them. Women like my grandmother, also Lady Bird Johnson, Ma Ferguson, who paved the way for future generations of Texas women. My grandmother really was more influential in my life than my own parents. She lived to the age of 99. She raised me to be in public service, and I always have been in public service because of her. Taught school. I was in the Air Force Reserves as a prosecutor, and then as a judge and a member of Congress, all because of my grandmother. She taught me many lessons, and she made it very simple. Not only did she inspire me to be in public service, I took that good advice. However, she said till the day she died that she had failed, because my grandmother was as we say in the South, a yellow dog Democrat, and could not believe that I had crossed over to the other side and became a Republican. And I'm not sure that she ever forgave me for being a Republican, but she was a strong-minded, no-nonsense individual. She used to always say, there is nothing more powerful than a woman that has made up her mind. And that's true. A woman that has made up her mind, get out of the way. And we find that true even today. That has proven to be one of the most valuable lessons she ever taught me. President Lyndon Johnson was a hard-nosed politician, but his contributions to Texas as president were really surpassed, in my opinion, by his dogged First Lady, as we called her, Lady Bird Johnson. She was one of the finest Southern and politically astute women that we have ever had in the state of Texas. While she's best remembered for her love of the environment and the preservation of our natural resources, she was no wallflower in the business and political world either. She was her husband's strongest supporter and was with him giving advice step for step throughout his entire career, while at the same time carving out a path for herself in the business world. She turned a debt-ridden Austin radio station into a multi-million-dollar broadcast empire. Her resume reads like that of a superwoman. Among her many achievements, she played the pivotal part in shaping legislation by lobbying and speaking before Congress about the support of highway beautification, better known as the Lady Bird Bill. She oversaw every detail in the creation of the Presidential Library, which became a model for other presidential libraries today. And of course, she served faithfully and often in awe of colleagues as a regent of the alma mater of the University of Texas. Every spring, this time of the year, people head up from Houston to Austin on Highway 290. They see the wildflowers, and there are bazillions of them everywhere this time of year. Every bluebonnet we see throughout Texas Hill Country and every tree we plant here at home along a place called Will Clayton Parkway is a tribute to Lady Bird Johnson and her determination, we're going to keep Texas beautiful. Before there was a Lady Bird, Texas was home to another fiery, inspirational woman. You may have never heard about her. Her name was Ma Ferguson. The year was 1899, over 100 years ago. And Miriam Amanda Wallace married James Ferguson, who later became governor of Texas. Ma Ferguson served as First Lady of Texas from 1915 till 1917, about 2.5 years, until Paul Ferguson got himself in a little trouble, and he was impeached by the state of Texas and the legislature and during his second term, and he was barred from ever running for office anywhere again. Then Ma changed history. She did the unthinkable and ran for governor of Texas as a woman. Texas had only been run by men before, and Ma didn't care. She was going to run. She ran on a platform that 2 governors for the election of 1. Of course, Ma was not in prison like Paul was, but apparently they did work together, and she ran against Klan-supported Felix Robertson in the Democratic primary and claimed victory in the Democratic nomination. Back in those days, there were no Republicans in Texas. Everybody was a Democrat. The handful of Republicans never admitted it. So winning the Democrat primary was tantamount to winning the general election in November. And so Maul later became the first female governor of Texas and only the second female governor in the whole United States. So she defeated a little-known candidate in 1924 called George Butte, a Republican. The two Fergusons became known as Maul and Paul, and no surprise, Maul ran the show. However, Maul's governorship was tainted with the criticism of her loose policy of pardoning people in the penitentiary. But she was not above her critics. She pardoned thousands of inmates during her governorship. To many, the motive was behind the pardons was a little questionable, but allegations of bribery ultimately led to her next governor's race and the defeat. So after she lost the next election, Maul continued to her political fight, and she regained her governor's seat in 1932, again for a second term. One of her best achievements was the signing of Texas House Bill 194. It established the University of Houston as a four-year institution. Mr. Speaker, I went to the University of Houston Law School. I'm glad it got established. Maul would be proud to see the University of Houston today, and the Ferguson name lived long after the retirement of both Maul and Paul. My grandmother, Lady Bird Johnson, Maul Ferguson, Ann Richards, the Bush women, came from a generation of women that were strong and influential. They possessed the grace of an angel, yet led with both forceful and effective political genius. Few women of that later generation worked outside of the home, but few men succeeded with the backing of those ladies. These women did it all. They effortlessly backed their husbands while changing the world, all at the same time. And March, this month, is Women's History Month. So it's time we honor those people who lived years and years ago, honor those women that lived back during the greatest generation's time, and of course the women who live today. All those women now are in every profession, as stated earlier, including the legal profession, acting as judges and prosecutors, and not only that, members of Congress, members of cabinets, and ladies that give a lot of their money to the community. So we are thankful for them, and I appreciate the time that the gentleman from New York has given me so we could talk about some of these iron-willed, strong-willed women that have made up their mind.
Well, I thank the gentleman from Texas, and I would imagine if anyone was wondering what Women's History Month was all about, should just listen to your remarks as you pay exceptional tribute to some amazing women from your home state of Texas who all left a mark not only in your life, but these are people who I'm sure are getting celebrated all throughout your state and this country, not just by you, but by others as well. And in my home state of New York, it's tough. I mean, they give us a month, and here tonight they give us an hour. But there really are so many different women who give us this opportunity to take us to today, where the two of us can stand here on this particular House floor and speak to each other about such an important topic that apparently 25 years ago didn't even happen. It wasn't even until the early 80s that we even started recognizing a Women's History Week. So here we are, and I'm glad that you're part of it. And I could see that there's a lot of inspiration from women in your life.
Well, I thank the gentleman from New York, and I agree with you. A month is really not enough time to celebrate and honor women in our history that just made a big difference in a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people here in this chamber who all find different issues that interest them, that they focus heavily on and move the ball forward in a very positive way. And the one thing that I've experienced during my time serving here, and I'm in my first term, but serving on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and you are the subcommittee chairman of the Terrorism, Nonproliferation, and Trade Subcommittee. What I have experienced is that you do a lot to keep America safe, to keep the women and men of your district safe and this country. So I really do appreciate your service, because this is not just about reflecting on service in the past, but challenging ourselves to do even more to provide more opportunity going forward.
I thank the gentleman.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to yield to Ms. Black, who has a very special guest here she'd like to recognize.
Thank you for yielding, Congressman Zeldin. I appreciate that. And I do want to recognize Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey, who is going to be retiring after this year's of service. Mr. Speaker, today I rise to honor my friend Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey on his upcoming retirement from the Tennessee State Senate. It's not an exaggeration to say that Lieutenant Governor Ramsey changed Tennessee history. He was, after all, our first Republican lieutenant governor in over 140 years. His legacy will be one of preserving that which makes Tennessee special: our low tax burden, our commitment to fiscal responsibility, and our tradition of defending life. It was among one of the great honors of my professional career to serve as chairman of the State Republican Caucus under his leadership, and to partner with him as we laid the groundwork for the conservative supermajority that we enjoy today in Tennessee. I will never forget being in the Senate chamber the moment that Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey was elected. He came to the well of the Senate floor, and before doing anything else, paid honor to God, telling all of us in the room and everyone else watching that it is to him we owe our very being. He then thanked his family, including his wife, Cindy, who has served Tennessee with distinction as our second lady for nearly a decade. In that moment, Lieutenant Governor Ramsey reminded all of us of his priorities. He loves our state, he loves public service, but as anyone who knows him can attest, his faith and his family are of the greatest importance, and I will always be thankful to him for setting that example. Mr. Speaker, it should be noted that Lieutenant Governor Ramsey arose to his post in the state leadership shortly after a dark time in Tennessee history, which saw the very public failing of legislatures on both sides of the aisle. He was an example of character and personal integrity at that moment when we needed it the most. In a time, he made us believe that government could do right by its people. Lieutenant Governor Ramsey often reminded us, and I quote, "It matters who governs." And indeed, it does. As we reflect on where Tennessee has come from and where we're headed, we can say with certainty that our state is stronger because of Ron Ramsey's leadership. I count it a privilege to call him my friend, and I wish him, his wife Cindy, and his beautiful family all the best in this next chapter of their lives. I yield back.
I thank Ms. Black, and as we come towards the end of our hour, remembering and celebrating the women who have come before us and who serve today, trying their hardest to create more opportunities going forward. I would like to mention 8 young ladies from the 1st Congressional District of New York who I was proud to nominate to service academies this year. Taya Caniglio, Skylar Grothwall, and Gabriella Franco, all to the U.S. Naval Academy. Allie McFadden, Dana Fasano, U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. Chelsea Chamberlain, Isabella Cortez, Emma Fasolino, U.S. Military Academy. For these 8 young ladies who have stepped up, wanting to raise their hand to defend our country, to go off to a service academy comes with an obligation to wear that uniform and serve on active duty afterwards. And for anyone who signs up post 9/11, you understand what it is that you're signing up for. And to just think that for these young ladies, they were 2, 3 years old on September 11th, 2001. This is all that they know, is that post 9/11 America, and world, yet they're signing up to want to serve our country as officers. There are over 2 million women veterans. So as we consider legislation in this House, I co-sponsor H.R. 1356, the Women Veteran Access to Quality Care Act, which assists our women veterans, or we try to provide more access for health care for our women veterans. There are many opportunities available to us that still have not yet been achieved and pursued to victory. Women make up 15% of the U.S. military's active duty personnel and 18% of the National Guard and Reserve forces. H.R. 1356 will improve VA facilities for women veterans, hold VA medical facility directors accountable for performance measures, ensure the availability of OB/GYN services in VA medical centers, and calls for a GAO study on VA's ability to meet the needs of women veterans. Whether it is the 8 young ladies I mentioned who want to go to U.S. service academies, those who are currently, as we stand here over in harm's way in the Middle East and elsewhere, away from their families, having sons and daughters here at home, and they may not just be on their first deployment, they may be on their 4th or their 5th or their 6th deployment, or when they come home, whether they come home in one piece, or they come home with the physical or mental wounds of war, or they need assistance pursuing educational or vocational opportunities. We honored all women during this hour, but I wanted to close by paying an extra special tribute and thank you to our women veterans, and once again to all of the women in my life